Stroke at sea. Phil Harris had worked the Bering Sea for 30 years before a camera ever followed him onto the water. He had started fishing commercially as a teenager, built a reputation across decades of crab seasons, and eventually became the captain of the Cornelia Marie, a vessel he treated less like equipment and more like an extension of himself. By the time Discovery Channel began production on Deadliest Catch in 2005, Harris was already the kind of fisherman other fishermen respected. The show did not create him. It found him already formed, already tested, already carrying the weight of a career built in one of the most dangerous working environments on Earth. The Bering Sea does not accommodate inexperience. The water is cold enough to kill within minutes of immersion. The weather shifts without warning. The crab pots weigh hundreds of pounds. The gear moves fast, and the margin between a routine operation and a fatal one is measured in seconds. Harris had navigated that environment across 3 decades. He had watched the industry change, watched the safety regulations evolve, watched other captains and crews lose people to the water. He had survived all of it. His sons Josh and Jake Harris were part of his crew. This was not unusual for crab fishing families, but it gave the Cornelia Marie a specific character on camera, a family operation playing out in public with all the friction and loyalty that entailed. Viewers watched the Harris family work through seasons of the show. The dynamic was familiar to anyone who had followed the series. A father who pushed hard, sons who pushed back, and work that did not pause for any of it. Harris had already had a serious health event before the incident in 2010. In 2008, he suffered a pulmonary embolism, a condition that was documented and discussed publicly. He recovered, returned to the Cornelia Marie, and continued filming. The show did not minimize this. His health history was part of the record. January 29, 2010 fell during the Apilio crab season. The Cornelia Marie had completed a crab offload at St. Paul Island, Alaska. St. Paul Island sits in the Pribilof Islands group, in the middle of the Bering Sea, a remote outpost that exists primarily to service the commercial fishing fleet that works the waters around it. The harbor in winter is cold, gray, and functional. The offload process is physical work, moving crab from vessel to dock, and Harris had been through it countless times. Production cameras were present. This was a normal day of filming for a show in its 6th season. After the offload, Harris collapsed. The stroke occurred on January 29th. He was 53 years old. He was in St. Paul Island when it happened, and the severity was apparent immediately. He was transported first to local medical facilities, then airlifted to Providence, Alaska Medical Center in Anchorage. The distance between St. Paul Island and Anchorage is significant, and the transfer itself reflected the seriousness of his condition. The stroke had caused substantial neurological damage. His sons Josh and Jake traveled to Anchorage. They remained at the hospital. Discovery Channel confirmed the hospitalization publicly. The production for Season 6 continued around the developing situation with the knowledge that one of its central cast members was in critical condition in a hospital 800 miles from the water. Harris spent 11 days at Providence, Alaska Medical Center. Medical staff worked to stabilize him across that period. His sons did not leave. The updates that reached the public through the show's network and through news coverage were not optimistic. The damage from the stroke was not reversing. On February 9, 2010, Phil Harris was pronounced dead. He was 53 years old. The cause of death was stroke. Discovery Channel's tribute episode, which aired later in Season 6, drew some of the highest ratings the show had recorded to that point. His sons continued to be part of the fishing world, and the Cornelia Marie remained in the public record as the vessel where one of American reality television's most recognized figures had spent the last working years of his life. Lost overboard. The Bering Sea crab fishery is among the most statistically dangerous commercial industries in the United States. The vessels that work it are real working boats, not constructed environments. The crews aboard them are real commercial fishermen, not performers. When Discovery Channel built Deadliest Catch around this world, it embedded cameras into an industry where fatalities were already part of the historical record long before any production crew arrived. Todd Meadows was associated with the Deadliest Catch production and with the crab fishing fleet that the show documented. He went overboard during operations connected to the show and did not survive. The incident was reported in connection with the production. The deck of a crab fishing vessel in the Bering Sea is among the most physically demanding and hazardous work surfaces that exist in commercial industry. The deck is wet. The gear is heavy. Crab pots can weigh upward of 700 pounds. Lines run across the deck under tension. Ice accumulates on surfaces in winter conditions, reducing traction. The vessel moves with the water, and the water in the Bering Sea is not calm. A worker on deck is managing all of this simultaneously, and the margin for error is narrow. Going overboard in the Bering Sea in operational conditions is almost always fatal if recovery does not happen within a very short window. Water temperatures in the Bering during crab season sit well below what the human body can survive for extended periods. Survival time in those conditions without a survival suit is measured in minutes. Even with a suit, the window for rescue is limited by the speed with which the vessel can respond, the conditions at the time of the incident, and the ability of crew to locate a person in water that is cold, dark, and moving. When a crew member goes overboard, the response sequence is immediate. The vessel attempts to come about. A ring buoy or throw line goes into the water. The crew watches to maintain a visual on the person in the water. A mayday call goes out to the Coast Guard. All of this happens fast, and the success of the rescue depends on factors that are often outside the crew's control. Todd Meadows went into the water and did not come back. The exact circumstances of the specific incident, the precise date, the vessel involved, and the full sequence of the response are details that require verification from confirmed source records before they can be stated with specificity. What is confirmed is that the incident occurred in connection with the Deadliest catch production environment, that Meadows went overboard, and that he died. The Coast Guard response to overboard incidents in the Bering Sea is coordinated out of the 17th District, which covers Alaska and surrounding waters. Response times depend on proximity of assets and conditions at the time of the incident. In remote Bering Sea locations, even a rapid response cannot always arrive within the survival window that cold water creates. Meadows did not survive. His death occurred in the waters that the show had spent years documenting as among the most dangerous in the world. The Bering Sea had been the central fact of Deadliest Catch since its first season. The show's premise rested on the reality of that danger. Meadows' death was a confirmation of what the series had always presented as true. Challenge collapse. Diem Brown had been competing on MTV's The Challenge since 2006. She had appeared across multiple seasons of the competition series, which pits former cast members of MTV reality shows against one another in physically demanding elimination-style events held at international locations. The format is grueling. The challenges involve strength, endurance, and physical risk. The contestants are expected to perform at a high level, and the competition is real. Brown's history on the show was inseparable from her public health history. She had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer before her first season aired. She underwent chemotherapy, documented some of that process publicly, and returned to compete. Her cancer went into remission. She came back to the challenge. She lost her hair to treatment and wore a wig on camera, and that fact became part of how audiences knew her. She was 37 years old and one of the most recognized figures in the show's long-running cast. By 2014, Brown was filming The Challenge, Battle of the Exes 2. The season was shot in Panama, a location consistent with the show's pattern of international productions in warm weather settings. The format paired former couples against one another. Brown was competing. Her presence on the show was a decision she had made with full knowledge of her health history, as she had made similar decisions across multiple previous seasons. The production environment for The Challenge involves physical challenges that are designed to test the cast at a high level. These are not casual activities. They require exertion, coordination, and physical endurance. The cast trains for these competitions. The show documents the preparation as well as the events themselves. During filming of Battle of the Exes 2, Brown collapsed on set. The medical emergency was serious enough that she required emergency evacuation from the production location. She was airlifted from the set. The severity of her condition at the time of the collapse required immediate transport beyond what local facilities could provide. Brown was brought to New York City. She was treated at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, one of the foremost cancer treatment institutions in the United States. Her condition after the collapse was the result of her cancer, which had progressed. The cancer had returned, and by the time of her collapse on the set of The Challenge, it had advanced to a stage that treatment could not reverse. She had ovarian cancer and colon cancer. Her situation at Memorial Sloan Kettering did not improve over the following weeks. The medical team there worked to address what her body was facing, but the disease had progressed beyond the point where intervention could produce a recovery. Brown had survived cancer before. She had built a public identity around that survival and had competed in physically demanding television while carrying that history. This time, the outcome was different. MTV made the decision to pull the episode in which Brown fell ill from the broadcast schedule. Rather than air the episode as produced, the network replaced it with a tribute to her. The decision was an acknowledgement of the circumstances under which the footage had been captured. Diem Brown died on November 14th, 2014. She was 34 years old. The cause of death was ovarian and colon cancer. The challenge Battle of the Exes 2 continued to air. The tribute MTV produced ran in place of the episode that would otherwise have shown the events of her final days on set, French Jungle Cardiac. Koh-Lanta is France's long-running adaptation of the survival reality competition format. Produced by Adventure Line Productions for the French broadcaster TF1, it follows the same structural logic as its international counterparts. Contestants are placed in a remote location, divided into tribes, and subjected to physical and psychological challenges that eliminate them one by one until a winner remains. The show had been running for years before its 2013 season titled Koh-Lanta, Le Choc des Titans. It was a known format with an established production infrastructure and a regular broadcast audience. The location for Le Choc des Titans was Koh Rong Island in Cambodia. Koh Rong is an island off the southern coast of Cambodia, densely vegetated, with a humid tropical climate. It is remote, and the production infrastructure required to bring a reality competition crew and cast to that location is substantial. The cast had been recruited, medically screened, and transported to Cambodia for the start of filming. Gérald Babin was 25 years old. He had passed the show's pre-competition medical screening. He was physically fit and had been cleared to compete. He was a new contestant, not a returning figure, and he arrived at the start of the season as any new contestant would, with the energy and readiness of someone who had prepared for the experience. The day he collapsed was the first day of competition filming. The challenge that day involved jumping from a boat and competing in a tug-of-war on the beach. First-day challenges on competition survival shows are often designed to establish the physical hierarchy of the cast and to introduce the competitive dynamic immediately. The cameras were rolling, the production crew was in place, the medical team for the production was present. The show's doctor, Thierry Costa, was on location as part of the production's standard medical support structure. During the challenge, Babin collapsed. He went into cardiac arrest. He was 25 years old, physically fit, and had been medically cleared, and he went into cardiac arrest on the first day of competition filming. The on-set medical team responded. Dr. Costa was among those who responded to the emergency. The response was immediate, given the medical personnel present on location. Babin was evacuated by helicopter from the filming location. The remote setting of Koh Rong meant that the transport required to reach advanced medical care was not brief. The seriousness of a cardiac arrest in a 25-year-old who had been medically cleared moments earlier was not something the production infrastructure had anticipated, but the response was launched. Babin did not survive. He died following the evacuation from the filming site. He was 25 years old. His death occurred on the first day of competition filming, before a single episode of the season had been recorded in any meaningful sense for the cast or audience. TF1 made the decision to cancel the broadcast of the season entirely. The footage that had been captured would not air. The network did not attempt to proceed with a season that had opened with the death of a contestant. A formal investigation into the production's safety protocols was launched in France, examining how a contestant who had passed medical screening had suffered cardiac arrest during a physical activity. The consequences extended beyond the investigation. Dr. Costa, the show's physician who had been present at the emergency response, died by self-unaliving in the days that followed Babin's death. A note he left referenced the incident. His death added a second fatality to the immediate aftermath of what had happened on Koh Rong and deepened the national conversation in France about the production practices surrounding Koh-Lanta. Gérald Babin died at 25 years old. The cause of death was cardiac arrest. The season he had traveled to Cambodia to compete and never aired. Plane Down Mexico. Jenni Rivera was one of the most commercially successful regional Mexican music artists in history. Born in Long Beach, California on July 2, 1969, she had built a career that crossed markets and genres within Latin music, accumulating record sales in the tens of millions and a public profile that extended well beyond the traditional audience for banda and norteño music. She was Grammy nominated. She was a businesswoman. She was the subject of her own docuseries on the cable network M-Universo, which later became NBC Universo. The show was called I Love Jenni. It was a docuseries format following Rivera's life and career across multiple seasons. By late 2012, the show was in active production on its third season. Rivera's life was being documented as she moved through her professional calendar, and her professional calendar was extremely full. She was one of the most in-demand performers in her market, and the show followed her accordingly. On the evening of December 8, 2012, Rivera performed a concert in Monterrey, Mexico. Monterrey is one of the largest cities in Mexico, a major commercial and cultural hub in the northeast of the country, and a significant stop for any touring Latin artist. Rivera performed for her audience that night. After the show, she was scheduled to travel. The transport arranged was a chartered Learjet 25, registered ex-AP, waiting at General Mariano Escobedo International Airport. 6 people were aboard the aircraft alongside Rivera. They included her publicist, her attorney, her makeup artist, her hairstylist, and 2 pilots. These were the members of her working team, the people who traveled with her and supported the operational reality of a touring career at the level Rivera maintained. They boarded the Learjet in the early hours of December 9th. The aircraft departed General Mariano Escobedo International Airport in the early morning hours of December 9th, 2012, at approximately 3:15 in the morning. Shortly after takeoff, the plane dropped off radar contact. It had not reached cruising altitude. It had not traveled far from the airport. The radar contact ended quickly, and the aircraft was not heard from again. The wreckage was located later that morning in the municipality of Iturbide, in the state of Nuevo León, approximately 40 miles north of Monterrey. The terrain in that area is mountainous and not easily accessible. The wreckage was found in a remote location, and the recovery of the site required effort. All 7 people aboard the aircraft died in the crash. There were no survivors. Mexico's Civil Aviation Authority, the Dirección General de Aeronáutica Civil, launched an investigation into the crash. The investigation examined the aircraft, its maintenance history, and the circumstances of the flight. The Learjet 25 involved had a documented operational history. Rivera's management confirmed her death. The entertainment and music worlds in both the United States and Mexico responded to the news of her death with the scale appropriate to one of the most prominent figures in Latin music. She had been 43 years old. She was not traveling alone. Her children, including her daughter Chiquis Rivera, were not on the aircraft. I Love Jenni had been in production when Rivera died. The 3rd season she had been filming was broadcast posthumously. A tribute special was produced. The career she had built over decades, documented in part by the show that bore her name, ended in the early morning hours of December 9th, 2012, 40 miles north of a concert stage where she had performed hours before. Jenni Rivera was 43 years old. All 7 people aboard the aircraft died. The cause was the crash of the Learjet 25 shortly after departing Monterrey. Wait and waiting. My 600 LB Life is one of TLC's longest-running and most-watched documentary series. The show follows individuals with extreme obesity through a structured process involving dietary change, behavioral adjustment, and potential bariatric surgery under the supervision of Dr. Yunan Nauzaradin, a Houston-based bariatric surgeon who has appeared in every episode of the series. The format is intimate. Cameras are placed in the subjects' homes. The process is documented from the earliest stages before surgery is considered through whatever outcome the participant reaches. The show is built around access. It follows people in their daily environments, in their medical appointments, in their difficult moments, and their attempts at change. The cameras are present through the full arc of each subject's experience. This access is what the show is, and the subjects agree to that access as part of their participation. Robert Buchel was 41 years old and living in New Jersey when he agreed to participate in My 600 LB Life. He was in the early phase of the program before the surgery that the show's format builds toward when production was actively filming his episode. He weighed approximately 600 pounds at the time of filming. On February 14, 2017, Buchel suffered heart failure. He died while the production was actively filming. He was 41 years old, and he died during the process that the cameras were there to document. His episode aired on March 1, 2017, 2 weeks after his death. TLC did not pull the episode from the broadcast schedule. The episode was broadcast posthumously as produced. After Buchel's death, his family filed a civil lawsuit against Megalomedia, the production company responsible for My 600LB's life. The lawsuit contained specific allegations about the conduct of the production during the period when Buchel showed signs of medical distress. The family alleged that members of the production crew were present when Buchel exhibited signs that something was wrong, and that those crew members did not take adequate steps to seek medical help for him. The family alleged that the priorities of the production were placed ahead of Buchel's medical needs. These are allegations made in the context of civil litigation, and they are reported here as the claims advanced by the family in that lawsuit, not as established or adjudicated fact. Megalomedia did not publicly comment on the allegations in detail. The lawsuit raised questions that extended beyond Buchel's individual case. My 600LB life places cameras inside the lives of people who are, by the show's own premise, in serious medical condition. The subjects of the show are extremely obese. They are at elevated risk for cardiac events, respiratory events, and other acute medical emergencies as a direct consequence of the conditions that brought them to the show in the first place. The presence of a production crew during any medical emergency experienced by a subject is therefore not a hypothetical scenario. It is a foreseeable one. What the crew's obligations are in those moments and what the production's protocols specify about when filming stops and emergency response begins is a question the lawsuit put directly into the public record. Whether the legal proceedings resolved in favor of any party and on what terms is a matter of public court record to be verified and included if confirmed. Robert Buchel died on February 14, 2017. He was 41 years old. The cause of death was heart failure. His episode of My 600LB Life aired on March 1, 2017. Wicked Tuna Loss. Wicked Tuna is a National Geographic reality series that follows commercial bluefin tuna fishermen operating out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. The show documents the pursuit and capture of Atlantic bluefin tuna, a species that commands extremely high prices in international fish markets, particularly in Japan. The fishermen who appear on the show are real commercial operators. The vessels are real working boats. The catches, the weather, the equipment failures, and the risks are not staged. Gloucester is one of the oldest fishing ports in the United States, with a commercial fishing history that predates the country itself. The waters off the coast of New England, where the Wicked Tuna fleet operates, are serious working waters. The conditions offshore can deteriorate rapidly, and the work of commercial fishing at sea carries with it a fatality rate that is among the highest of any industry in the country. This is the environment that Wicked Tuna documents. Nicholas Clutter was a crew member connected to the Wicked Tuna production. He was part of the world the show had built its audience around, the community of working fishermen who go out onto difficult water to pursue a commercially valuable species under conditions that do not always cooperate. In 2018, Clutter drowned. The incident occurred in connection with the fishing operations the show documented. The specific vessel involved, the precise date of the incident, the exact location in the waters off Gloucester or the surrounding area, and the full sequence of the emergency response are details that the confirmed sourced record contains, and that require verification before they can be stated with specificity in a scripted account. What is confirmed is that Clutter went into the water and did not survive. In water off the coast of New England, particularly in conditions associated with active fishing operations, the window between a person entering the water and the point at which recovery becomes impossible is narrow. The temperature of the water, the sea state, the proximity of other crew, and the speed with which emergency response can be mounted all factor into the outcome. A Coast Guard response to an overboard incident in those waters would be coordinated through the 1st District, which covers the northeastern United States coastline. The response timeline depends on the location of available assets and the conditions at the time of the incident. Whether the Coast Guard was involved, what assets responded, and how long the search lasted are details drawn from the official record. Clutter died. His death occurred within the world that Wicked Tuna had spent years filming. The show had presented the dangers of commercial fishing as its central subject, and the loss of a crew member connected to its production was a concrete expression of what the show had always described as real risk. Nicholas Clutter drowned in 2018. His connection to the Wicked Tuna production placed his death within the documented record of a show that had made the dangers of commercial fishing its primary subject matter. Stunt gone wrong. In the early 2000s, British television had developed an appetite for programming built around extreme physical performance. The format placed cameras in front of athletes, stuntmen, and performers attempting dangerous feats, and it delivered the footage to broadcast audiences who understood that the risk was genuine. Danger, Extreme Sports Show, was part of this environment, a UK production that put real physical risk in front of its cameras as a matter of format. Lyndon Ogborne was 24 years old. He was a stuntman, working within an industry that accepts physical danger as an occupational condition. Stunt work requires a specific combination of skill, preparation, and controlled risk-taking. It is not recklessness. It is trained physical performance executed within parameters designed to minimize the probability of failure. The parameters do not eliminate failure. They reduce its likelihood. On November 22, 2002, Ogborne was performing a skateboarding stunt for the Danger production. The filming location, the specific nature of the stunt, the height or surface involved, and the precise sequence of what went wrong are details contained in the UK press record and any health and safety executive proceedings that followed. Those details should be drawn from verified source material before being stated in the scripted account. What the record confirms is that the stunt failed. Something in the execution of the skateboarding performance went wrong, in a way that caused injuries severe enough to be fatal. The cameras were rolling, consistent with the show's format. The production crew was present. When a stunt fails at a production shoot, the response begins immediately. The crew present at the location are the first to respond. Emergency services are contacted. The severity of what has happened is assessed on site, and the decision about how to transport and treat the injured person is made based on what the responders can determine in the immediate aftermath. Ogborne sustained injuries during the stunt that were fatal. Whether he died at the filming location or following transport to a medical facility is a detail the sourced record contains. The emergency response that was mounted following the incident, the involvement of UK emergency services, and the timeline between the incident and his death are all elements of the confirmed record. Any investigation by the health and safety executive into the safety protocol surrounding the stunt and the production would form part of the documented consequence of his death. The HSE has authority to investigate workplace fatalities in the United Kingdom, and a fatal incident during a television production would fall within its jurisdiction. Lyndon Ogborne died on November 22, 2002. He was 24 years old. The cause of death was the injuries sustained during the skateboarding stunt filmed for the Danger production. Survivor's last day. Expedition. Robinson was a Swedish reality series that aired on SVT, the Swedish public broadcaster, beginning in 1997. The show placed contestants in a remote location and eliminated them one by one through a combination of physical challenges and tribal votes, until one person remained. The format was direct. It was competitive. It was psychologically demanding. It was also the format that a British production company would later adapt into the international phenomenon known as Survivor. The first season of Expedition, Robinson aired in Sweden in 1997. The contestants had been selected, transported to a remote location, and placed into the competition structure. They were filmed continuously, as the format required. The show's premise rested on the idea that the experience was real, that the pressure was real, and that the elimination was real. Sinisa Savija was a contestant on that first season. He was born in 1960 and had come to Sweden, a country where he had built his life. He entered the competition as any contestant would, having agreed to participate in a format that would document his experience and broadcast it to a national audience. Savija was the first contestant eliminated from Expedition Robinson. The elimination was voted on by his fellow contestants as the format specified. He left the competition. He went home. The episode in which his elimination was recorded had not yet aired. The production had captured the footage. The broadcast schedule was set. The episode was coming. On April 21, 1997, Savija chose to leave. He self-unalived before the episode showing his elimination was broadcast to the Swedish public. He died before the country saw what had happened on the show. He died before his experience on the program was known to anyone beyond those who had been present for it. His wife Vesna Savija spoke publicly after his death. She gave interviews in which she addressed his experience on the show and the elimination that had preceded his death. She disputed the way the production had handled his participation and raised questions about his mental state in the aftermath of his elimination. Her public statements are part of the documented record of what happened. SVT faced a decision. The episode containing Savija's elimination was scheduled to air. His death was known. The question of whether to proceed with the broadcast or to pull the episode became a matter of public debate in Sweden. SVT chose to air the episode as scheduled. That decision became a significant controversy. The broadcast of an episode featuring a man who had died by self-unaliving in the period between filming and air date prompted a national conversation in Sweden about the responsibilities of broadcasters and producers toward the people who appear on their programs. The discussion touched on psychological support for eliminated contestants, the obligations of production companies after filming ends, and the ethics of proceeding with a broadcast under those circumstances. This case sits at the edge of the specific category of deaths during active production. Savija did not die while cameras were rolling. He died after his filming had concluded, in the period between the end of his participation and the broadcast of the episode that documented it. He died within the timeline created by his involvement with the show, before the public consequence of that involvement had played out. Sinisa Savija chose to leave on April 21st, 1997. The episode of Expedition. Robinson documenting his elimination aired as scheduled. The controversy that followed contributed to a broader international conversation, in the years that followed, about the duty of care that reality television formats owe to the people who participate in them. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.